کیوں چھوڑ کے جاتے ہو ہمیں بھائی مدینہ، بتلاؤ رہے کیسے اندھیرے میں سکینہ، کیوں
چھوڑ کے جاتے ہو ہمیں بھائی مدینہ، بتلاؤ رہے کیسے اندھیرے میں سکینہ۔
تم جاتے ہو اماں بھی پھوپھی بھی چلیاں سے، تم
جانتے ہو ڈرتی ہوں ویران مکہ سے،
تقدیر نے مجھ سے میرے
تقدیر نے مجھ سے میرے
کلبے کو ہے چھینا،
بتلاؤ رہے کیسے اندھیرے میں سکینہ۔
معلوم نہ تھا کب اب کبھی گھر جا نہ سکوں گی،
ڈرتی تھی اندھیرے سے اندھیرے میں رہوں گی،
مرنے سے بھی بدتر ہوا،
مرنے سے بھی بدتر ہوا،
زندان میں جینا،
بتلاؤ رہے کیسے اندھیرے میں سکینہ۔
ایک روز تو آزاد ہوا کرتے ہیں قیدی،
قسمت میں خدا جانے میرے قید ہے کیسی،
اس قید سے پاؤں گی،
اس قید سے پاؤں گی
رہائی میں کبھی نہ،
بتلاؤ رہے کیسے اندھیرے میں سکینہ۔
میں کہتی تھی مل جائے رہائی کسی صورت،
گھر جا کے دادی سے کروں گی یہ شکایت،
دادی میرے بابا کو، دادی میرے بابا کو مسلمانوں نے چھینا،
بتلاؤ رہے کیسے اندھیرے میں سکینہ۔
اچھا چلو گھر جاؤ تو سغرا سے یہ کہنا،
آباد رہو شاد رہو اے میری بہنا،
اب خواب میں آئے گی،
اب خواب میں آئے گی
تمہیں ملنے سکینہ،
بتلاؤ رہے کیسے اندھیرے میں سکینہ۔
تم قبر بنا کر میری زندہ سے چلے ہو،
اتنا تو ذرا تم میرے بارے میں بھی سوچو،
دل میں ہے لعینوں کے،
دل میں ہے لعینوں کے
بھرا مجھ سے ہی کینہ،
بتلاؤ رہے کیسے اندھیرے میں سکینہ۔
توصیف در زندہ پہ لرزتے رہے عابد،
ریحان بہت دیر تڑپتے رہے عابد،
जब काफिला जिंदा से
जब काफिला जिंदा से
चला सूए मदीना बतलाओ रहे कैसे अंधेरे में सकीना क्यों छोड़ के जाते हो हमें भाई मदीना बतलाओ रहे कैसे अंधेरे में सकीना.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين ثم الصلاة والسلام والتحيات والإكرام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ونبينا وحبيبنا وحبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد صلى الله عليه وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين سيما بقية الله في الأرضين حجة ابن الحسن روحي وأرواحنا لتراب مقدمه الفداء الذي بيمنه رزق الوراء وبوجوده ثبتت الأرض والسماء. As we are arriving into the vicinity of the night of Arba'een and the day of Arba'een, the 40th after the martyrdom of Abi Abdullah alayhi salam and the arrival of the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam near the graves and the qubur of the Shuhada of Karbala, including the grave of Imam Husayn alayhi salam. As we approach towards these nights, we sincerely ask for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He accepts all of our a'mal and our aza that we have participated in over the past 2 months. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also within inside of this majlis that if we have committed any mistakes during these weeks and nights, O Allah, for the sake of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad, forgive us all for the sake of Aba Abdullah Al-Husayn. We ask you, Ya Allah, for the sake of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad, at the end of this season of Azar, allow for us to receive the special shifa of Abi Abdullah alayhi salam within inside of our lives. And if we are due to depart from this world before next year and the next season of Azar, then may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala resurrect us with the Shuhada of Karbala, and may He forgive our walidain and our marhumeen and marhumat with the barakat of a salawat ala Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. Yesterday we spoke about a letter that was written by Imam Husayn alayhi salam that was sent to the 5 tribal leaders of Basra, and we had mentioned the factors of betrayal and what had exactly taken place within Sar of Tariq, that the message of Husayn alayhi salam was largely abandoned, and the fact that it was not paid attention towards and nobody assisted the Imam alayhi salam, although there was a call of the Imam towards the people. Today I would like to elevate our understanding of Karbala and Ashura through a khutbah of Imam Husayn alayhi salam that he had given on the day of Ashura itself. Meaning the Imam alayhi salam had given this sermon in front of the army of Umar as-Sa'ad on the day of Ashura. And we need to understand through this khutbah, we would like to gain an understanding of what is the strategy of Imam Husayn alayhi salam. What is the political strategy? What are the rules of engagement where it comes to the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam on the battlefield? When it comes to the actual battle, what does the Imam alayhi salam prefer? What does he stand for? And what is the necessity of sending children towards the plains of Karbala? And because too often Karbala is portrayed as just a story of sadness and a story of oppression and a story of musibah, although no doubt there is oppression and it is the peak of dhulm and madhlumiyat where it comes to Imam al-Husayn alayhi salam. But at the same time, Imam alayhi salam sought to re-establish the policy of the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. He sought to re-establish the strategy of the Ahlul Bayt where it comes to the battlefield, so that this entire movement of Husayniyya can become a complete package for every era and every zaman, for it to be a method and for it to be a strategy that we can follow in every single zaman. Right? Imam alayhi salam initially wanted to forever challenge humanity with questions like who stood for justice, who had silently betrayed, who had stood for power, who had remained loyal. Hence why when we proclaim within side of our ziyarat, bi-abi anta wa ummi wa nafsi wa mali wa ahli, it is not in the sense that we are making this as a slogan. It is not a 61st Hijri slogan. Rather, this is a declaration of allegiance towards the Imam of our age. When we say that, may my father, may my son, may my children, may all of my wealth, whatever I have within inside of my life, may it be in ransom for the son of the Rasulullah. It is in the meaning that it is a form of declaration. Also, when the hadith says, كُلُّ يَوْمٍ عَاشُورًا وَكُلُّ أَرْضٍ كَرْبَلًا, that every day is Ashura and every land is Karbala, it is not in the sense that every day is a day of Azar. Rather, this hadith is trying to tell us that Husayniyya lives in every single zaman, Yazidiyya lives in every single age, in the entirety of the tariq of this world. And Imam alayhi salam, as I mentioned, he sought to re-establish the policy of the Ahlul Bayt. What are the rules of engagement where it comes to the battlefield? Because at the end of the day, the narrative is extremely important, as we all know. Had Imam alayhi salam brought with him an army of people and an army of men to confront Yazid and his soldiers, then propaganda would have rewritten Karbala as an uprising against the caliphate of the time, as a rebellion. It would not have been a movement or a revolution as we look at it today, right? Karbala would have been reduced to a political dispute. Although today the efforts are still being made till the very day that we are living in to reduce Karbala to a political dispute and to reduce it to a rebellion by Imam alayhi salam. What media and propaganda did yesterday, they also do today, and that is to reverse the roles of the oppressed and the oppressor. We hear usually that Malcolm X, he would say in the side of his life, if you're not careful, the media will make you believe that the oppressed people are the oppressors and the oppressed are the oppressed. And that is the main role of propaganda and media within inside of most eras, in all eras that has been the case. And it was the case in 61st Hijri. Yazid, he had understood the power of narratives. He had understood that if he can instill fear within inside of people, if he can make people believe that it is wrong and it is not correct to stand against the caliph of the time, then people will automatically abandon their deen. They will abandon their religion, so as long as they understand the consequences and the fear behind it. If I threaten their lives, they will easily abandon their deen. Right? That is the general rule of Yazidiyya, to remain in silence, to not be able to speak, to not have courage. Do not let Yazid know where do you stand. Do not allow for Yazid to understand who do you side with, what narrative you believe in. The general rule of Husayniyya is that people who are considered as the following base of this maktab and this sect, they must know and internalize that faith is not a private conviction, rather it is a public commitment. Husayniyya states that if you want to be subscribing to this following base, then faith is not something that resides within inside of the walls of a masjid. It is not a matter that resides within inside of your own societies. Rather, it is a public commitment, and it is something that has to be displayed as your identity. You must wear it loud and proud. It is not something that I keep hidden within inside of my heart. Even if Yazid knows where you stand, even if Yazid knows how you stand and why you stand, the real test is not determining whether Yazid was on the side of falsehood in 61st Hijri. That is something that is a given for us. But the real test is standing in every single age for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because the situation at that time, as we all know very well, it was that if anybody had challenged or disputed against Yazid, and they had sided with Muslim ibn Aqil, they would have been facing persecution. They would have faced prosecution. He would have threatened your family, your livelihood. Everything that is about you would have been threatened. Although this threat was also at the time of Amirul Mu'mineen, after the wafat of the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him. When the caliphate was established, it is narrated that when the first caliph had sought his allegiance and his bay'at towards his khilafah, the second caliph, who was his advisor, he had put the entire Medina on notice. And this is narrated in Tariq al-Tabari. It is not something from the Shia books. It is narrated within Sahih Tariq al-Tabari that the second caliph, he had forced to use the sword against those who do not pay allegiance to the first caliph. And I'll read the riwayah here. He says, Man rafadha bay'ata Abi Bakrin, whoever does not pay allegiance to the first caliph, فَلَيْسَ لَهُ عِنْدَنَا إِلَّا السَّيْفِ, they will receive nothing but the sword on their necks. And he placed, as I mentioned, the whole ummah on notice that whoever does not pay this allegiance, they will be facing persecution and prosecution. But what we need to understand is that the front of falsehood has always designed the truth to feel expensive. The front of batil has always tried to make it seem like as if the truth is too costly to stand for, to make people feel the consequences, to make them understand that it is consequential to stand for the haqq. Husayniyya, on the other hand, which is a madhab, it is a sect, it teaches that principles are more valuable than life itself. This is why, as I mentioned, we proclaim بِأَبِي أَنْتَ وَأُمِّي وَأَهْلِي وَمَالِي وَنَفْسِي, that Ya Aba Abdullah, O Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, I am willing to offer my life and my children and my family for ransom for the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is not poetry. This is not some slogan related to 61st Hijri. Rather, this is a declaration of allegiance that every mu'min must do within inside of every single zaman. And we all know that the judge of Kufa at that time, he had issued a fatwa against Imam Al-Husayn alayhi salam, and he had said anybody that supports Muslim ibn Aqil is due to be prosecuted and murdered. Meaning the government publicly had mentioned this. All right. They will face prison, they will face death, torture, their family will be ridiculed if you become a public supporter of the undeniable truth. We live within inside of a zaman where you are not able to become the public supporter of the undeniable truth. Meaning the principles of both sides, they remain ila yawm al-qiyamah. And this is something that we have been discussing over the past 9 or 8 nights. We have a look at certain examples who are non-Muslim. They have come out and they have spoken about that which is the undeniable truth within inside of society. They have proclaimed it. You realize that media has tried to cancel them. They have their visas revoked. They are not able to travel in most parts of the country. We have many within inside of our ulama who are not able to do that also. Just to make everybody understand that with this khutbah on the day of Ashura, Imam alayhi salam sought clarity. He sought transparency, so that there's no room left for denial, and it becomes in the form of an ihtimam al-hujjah, which is the policy of the Ahlul Bayt. What does that mean? It means the completion of truth. Meaning that after this, it is not possible for you to go wrong anymore. Meaning it becomes so clear as day that you have to make this decision for yourself. And if you make a decision on the contrary to this, it is as if you have rejected the whole deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from now on going forward, after this khutbah of the Imam. And we all know about the maqsad of Imam Al-Husayn alayhi salam. It was to enliven the principles of Tawheed, of monotheism, of La ilaha illallah. And he had explicitly had proven this, that anybody that wants to stand for La ilaha illallah cannot bow before mankind. He must bow before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the glorified path of Imam Al-Husayn alayhi salam. So in this majlis, I would like to narrate this khutbah and mention a few segments of it, and then inshallah I will conclude my majlis as we have in the previous majalis. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So in the riwayah it stated that before the Imam he had left towards the middle of the battlefield, he did not ask for his companions to follow him. Rather, he went alone to the middle of the battlefield to speak to Umar ibn Sa'ad and to the soldiers who were standing in front of him. And in the riwayat it is stated that Imam alayhi salam had changed his horse. He did not utilize his own horse, rather he used Farasa Ali ibn al-Husayn. Although it is debated within inside of this khutbah that maybe Ali ibn al-Husayn is referred to Imam al-Sajjad alayhi salam, or this is referred to as Ali al-Akbar. In most cases, most of the ulama have agreed that this was the horse of Ali al-Akbar that Imam alayhi salam had utilized to deliver this khutbah. Why did he change his horse? Because at that time this was also a strategy that when the commander of an army had to come and change his stance, or maybe deliver a message or come out in an attacking form, he would come in different formats, right? He would come in different forms. At that time also, when somebody had changed their horse and come to the middle of the battlefield, it would mean that they are willing to discuss and speak about something. So this khutbah doesn't have more than 4 to 5 sentences, but it is a very important khutbah. Because the Imam alayhi salam used 3 principles within inside of this sermon that the ears of history must have heard, and they must have made a decision for themselves. Imam alayhi salam, as he left from the camps, it is said within the riwayat that the ladies of the camps, they had come out and they had started to weep upon hearing Imam Al-Husayn alayhi salam saying these words. And once you hear these words, you'll understand why did the Ahlul Bayt and the Ahl Haram, why did they start crying after listening to this sermon. Imam alayhi salam says, Ayyuhan nas isma'u qawli. O army of Umar as-Sa'ad, listen to what I have to say. Listen to my words carefully. Before making any sort of judgment, I would like for you to listen to me. La ta'ajilu. Do not be hasty. Do not rush yourself into committing the greatest crime within the tariq of this world, and that is shedding my blood. I have nowhere to escape. You have surrounded me from all 4 directions in your thousands, with your horses, with your cavalry, with your archers. You have surrounded me completely. I have nowhere to escape. Hatta a'idhakum. I would like to advise you first before you make your decision. You see, Imam alayhi salam is starting to become transparent about matters, become clear. Bima yahiqqu lakum alay. This advice will benefit you if you listen to me. وَأَعْتَذِرْ إِلَيْكُمْ. If this talk of mine does not benefit you in any way, then I would like to apologize. In other words, the Imam alayhi salam is saying that if it seems like as if I am taking your time, then I appreciate the patience that you have showed so far from listening to me. As I mentioned, Imam alayhi salam, he is defining the boundaries of establishing that which is the haqq. And then Imam alayhi salam says, فَإِنْ أَعْطَيْتَمُونِ النَّصَفِ. If you have listened to what I have had to say, and you have thought about it with equity, you have thought about it with justice, you have thought about it with a fair mind, then withdraw your sword from shedding my blood today. Withdraw your swords from shedding and cutting off my lineage. Because it will take you nowhere but Jahannam. وَإِن لَمْ تُقْبِلُوا عُذْرِي. If you do not accept my words, if you have thought about it and you have not accepted, you want to reject me, then come forth and shed my blood with conviction and certainty. Do not have any doubt in what you are doing. Come and shed my blood. I am standing here in the middle of Karbala. I would like to derive a few things from this khutbah. Number 1, the first point is the strategy of the battlefield where it comes to the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. Before every battle that took place within inside of the tariq of Islam, whether that be the battle of Uhud, whether that be the battle of Badr, whether that be the battle of Hunayn, or Khandaq, or Khaybar, before the sword was lifted, before the takbir was raised for the army of Islam to go forward, jihad-e-tabyin, or setting the standards of truth, was a matter that was implemented before the battle had started. Meaning war and destruction and fight was not something that the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam preferred. It was not a policy. You know, many people, they argue that if you have a look at the tariq and the history of Islam, it is all related to war, it is all related to destruction, it is all related to murder of people. Whereas if we have to have a better look and a better understanding of this, we'd realize that the Ahlul Bayt, and specifically when the government was under the Rasulullah and under Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salam, setting the standards of truth was something that was established first, and war was in all cases, it was tried to have completely had stopped this war. This was the most important for the Ahlul Bayt, for the Rasulullah, for Amirul Mu'mineen, to set the standards of clarity, to set the standards of truth and become transparent, so that there's no room left for denial, for history and tariq. In the Battle of Siffin, I'll give as an example. Where is Siffin? Siffin historically was in what today is in the region of Raqqa. Raqqa is a northeastern city in Syria, and it is near the bank of the Euphrates. This is where this battle had taken place. In our traditions, it is narrated that Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salam and his companions and the army members who had set out from Kufa, when they had reached near Siffin, their water skins were empty. And usually the strategy of that time was that whoever had taken control over the water at that time, they would have become victorious within inside of the battle, because you would have exhausted your opponent, you would have exhausted the enemy that's standing in front of you because of your dominance over the water itself. This had taken place in Karbala, this had taken place in the previous battles itself. Ibn Abil Hadid says that the soldiers of Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salam, they were so thirsty that the state was weakened. So Imam alayhi salam, he had ordered for his soldiers to break this blockade, to fight against the soldiers of Muawiyah and open the axis of Furat. A few brave soldiers, they had led a battalion against the soldiers of Muawiyah, and they had fought a bunch of cavalry and archers. They had moved them to the side, and Imam alayhi salam regained control over the Furat in the battle of Siffin. Amirul Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wassalam, salawat all together please. Allahumma salli. Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salam and the Ahlul Bayt, they had a thumb rule where it came to foreign policy, where it came to the strategy of battle, where it came to the rules of engagement, and it was not diplomacy. The risk of diplomacy is that you would have to lay down your values and negotiate on the table for you to come towards a deal, so you can come and eventually reach a peace deal. And that is not what Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salam and the Ahlul Bayt had as a policy. Rather, establishing the standards of truth before any sort of engagement, before any sort of negotiation, would be the policy of the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. And I would like to mention how, right? Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salam, he frees the Furat. He frees the Euphrates. Now the soldiers of Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salam are advising Amirul Mu'mineen to do what? To block the Furat on the soldiers of Muawiyah. They say, Ya Ali, now is a good chance for us to block this water on them, so we can weaken this state and we can become victorious of this, we can become the victors of this battle very easily. We won't have to fight for too long. Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salam responds by saying that we never follow the unjust principles of Muawiyah. We do not follow the same rules of engagement. We do not have the same policy. Imam alayhi salam pens a letter to Muawiyah, and he says that your army is free to drink from the Furat, and your horses are free to drink from the Furat, and there's no blockade that is taking place on you. People had later and said, Ya Ali, why did you not impose a blockade on Muawiyah and Siffin? Is it because you were fearful? Is it because you were in doubt? Are you doubting yourself in these decisions? Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salam replied to them that if I was ever in fear, then in the battle of Badr I was only 23 when the Rasulullah had made me stand against Walid ibn Utbah. And I was the first to raise my Zulfiqar and split him in half. So neither was I in fear and neither was I in doubt at that time, and neither am I in doubt or fear today. And then Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salam, they had asked him that why did you not impose this blockade? Why do you not want to start a war with them? Why do you not want to defeat them? Imam alayhi salam says, Asa an yahtadi minhum ahada. That I only seek to wish and I only desire for one of them to be guided towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the justice and adalat of Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salam. Imam has not set out for mass destruction. He has not left from Kufa to murder all of the army of Muawiyah. He says, Asa an yahtadi minhum ahada. That I only wish that one of them be guided towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the policy of the Ahlul Bayt, setting the standards of truth and establishing the principles of haqq before a single arrow is fired, before the sword is raised. It is not a defensive form. Rather, it is standing for the truth. The second example I would like to give is from the Battle of Jamal. There's a man by the name of Muslim ibn Mushajja'i. He's a young man whom him and his mother were part of this battle, but however they were not fighting. They were in the town area where Jamal had taken place. Muslim ibn Mushajja'i was a qari of the Quran. Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salam asked for this young man because his voice was beautiful and he could recite loudly, to go into the middle of the battlefield and recite this Quran so that Talha and Zubair, they can listen to this Quran and maybe they will change their mind about fighting against Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salam. Because after all of these caliphs have passed by and now you are willing to fight me? At the time where the Rasulullah had departed from this world, you had a council and you had selected a caliph, and then after that it was successorship after successor. Now that I have reached caliphate, you are willing to stand against me in your thousands and fight me? What is the reason that you are standing in front of me? So Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salam wanted to ask these questions by sending the Qari Quran forward to the battlefield. So this young man, Muslim ibn Mushajja'i, he has the Quran and he is covering his face and he's reciting it. Meaning the scribe or the scroll of the Quran has covered his face and he's reciting it. In the riwayat it is stated that as he was reciting, Talha and Zubair, they order for somebody to fire an arrow to kill this man as he's reciting the Quran. One of the archers, they come forward and they fire an arrow that the page of the Quran, it sows itself into the chest of this Muslim ibn Mushajja'i, and he falls and he dies right there. The mother of this man comes to Amirul Mu'mineen and says, Ya Ali, I seek justice for this. Why have they killed this Qari, my son? And she wept and lamented. This is where Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salam said, now that haqq and truth has been established about who our opponents are, now it is time to fight. Now it is time to go forward. Not at the time where Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salam were just standing in front of the other army. No. At the time where they had attacked first and it had become transparent that the people that Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salam is standing against, these people are deviated. So this is the overall policy of the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. These are the rules of engagement where it comes to the Ahlul Bayt and the Rasulullah. In the third and final example I would like to give is about a man by the name of Yazid ibn Husayn. It's a very interesting name, but the Husayn is not the same scene as we have in Imam Al-Husayn alayhi salam's name. Rather, it's a Sad. Yazid ibn Husayn. He was a man who was narrating Karbala as it had gone on. Before I mention this example, I would like everybody to recite a salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. On the 7th of Muharram, this man Yazid ibn Husayn, he comes to Imam Al-Husayn alayhi salam and he says, Yabna Rasulullah, I have an old friendship with Umar al-Sa'ad. We've known each other from Medina. I would like to go to Umar al-Sa'ad and I would like to ask for him to open the Furat. Because I do not find it as justice that the children of the Rasulullah, they are thirsty, and I cannot bear to witness that they are dying of thirst. So he says, Ya Abu Abdullah, give me permission to go and speak to Umar as-Sa'ad. Imam alayhi salam says to him that there's no point to speaking to Umar as-Sa'ad. He's completely blind and he cannot comprehend, he cannot look at the reality of matters. So I would advise you to not go there. This man insists, he says, Yabna Rasulullah, I think I can try to persuade him to open up the Furat. So Yazid ibn Husayn, he gains the permission of the Imam and he travels towards that side. He says that I came to the camp of Umar as-Sa'ad and I saw that Umar as-Sa'ad, he was sharpening his sword. He was sharpening his blades and his swords, and he was in his camp. And his head was down. And he says that my shadow had reflected on his camp, and Umar as-Sa'ad had become aware that somebody is outside his camp. Umar as-Sa'ad, he looks outside of the camp and he sees his old friend Yazid ibn Husayn from Medina. Umar as-Sa'ad, he asks him that, why did you not come in and say salam to me? Why are you standing outside the camp? I have known you for such a long time. And what are you doing here in Karbala? He says, أَتَظُنُّ أَنَّكَ مُسْلِمٌ? He says that you're right. Salam is very important in Islam. It is amongst the etiquettes. But do you think that you have remained as a Muslim after what you are doing? Do you think you are still Muslim? هَذَا مَاءُ الْفُرَاتِ. He says, this is Furat. This is the Euphrates. تَشْرَبُهُ الْكِلَابُ وَالْخَنَازِيرُ. Animals, insects, humans all take benefit from drinking from this Furat. وَأَبْنَاءُ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أَتَاشَ. But the children of the Rasulullah, they are thirsty. Whilst all of these animals are benefiting from the Furat, they are free to drink. But you have deprived Al Rasul from drinking from this Furat. How do you consider yourself to be Muslim? Umar as-Sa'ad, he replies back, he says, I will explain for you, sit down. The man says, I'm not going to sit down, I seek a response from you immediately. This is a crime that you are committing. The Furat does not have a owner but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why have you closed it on them? Umar as-Sa'ad, he replies, he says, Wallahi inni a'lamu hurimat adha ahlul bayt alayhimus salam. He says, I swear by Allah, I know more about the honor and the sanctity of the Ahlul Bayt than you do. I know more about this. My father is Sa'ad ibn Abi Waqqas. He was a companion of the Holy Prophet. He was a companion of Amirul Mu'mineen. However, I have no choice because I have negotiated a price on the head of Husayn alayhi salam. He says, I know about the sanctity of the Ahlul Bayt, but I have negotiated and fixed a price on the heads of Bani Hashim. I have been promised the city of Ray. This man, he stands up in disgust. He doesn't listen to anything that Umar ibn Sa'ad has to say, and he leaves back to Imam al-Husayn alayhi salam. Imam al-Husayn alayhi salam says, what happened? He says, يَقْتُلُكَ بِالرَّيْء. That Umar al-Sa'ad wants to kill you over the governance of Ray. Imam alayhi salam, he stands up and he says, I'm going to go back and speak to Umar al-Sa'ad. Imam alayhi salam comes out of his camp and he calls out to Umar as-Sa'ad. Imam says, أَلَا تَتَّقِ اللَّهَ الَّذِي إِلَيْهِ مَعَادُكَ. O Umar as-Sa'ad, do you not fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the day of judgment? Do you not fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? The riwayah states that Umar as-Sa'ad, he puts his head down. He replies to the Imam, he says, if I do not do this, then Yazid will kill me. And if he does not kill me and I survive, my family will die and my lineage will be cut off and my house will be burned down. Imam alayhi salam says that I am Sayyid Shabab Ahlul Jannah. If Yazid takes your life from you, I am guaranteeing your akhirah. Then he says that, what about my family? If I withdraw my sword and I show loyalty and support you, what about my family who will be killed? Imam alayhi salam says that if you are afraid of losing your palace and your home, I have a garden on the outskirts of Medina where your family can seek refuge in, where my father Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salam has prayed a 2 rakat namaz over the span of 500 trees within inside of this bagh, within inside of this garden. and it's a very expensive land. It will be something that will be beneficial to the generations after you. This is the offer of Imam Al-Husayn alayhi salam. Umar al-Sa'ad, he says in response, the truth is that I value the government of Ray more than the garden that you are offering. I see more value in Ray than the garden that you are offering. Imam alayhi salam says to Umar al-Sa'ad, do you think that I am lying, or do you think that I speak the truth? He responds that I believe that you are saying the truth because you are the son of the Rasulullah, and I know that lie does not come from your house. Imam alayhi salam says that if you know that I am Sadiq al-Amin, then I promise you that you will never ever reach the position of the hukumat or the government of Ray. You will never reach as the governor of that city. And you will enter into the pit of Jahannam if you continue. Umar al-Sa'ad, he does not listen to the Imam and he walks away. The point of me saying this final part is that God forbid that somebody reaches to such a stage within inside of their life where moral guidance cannot impact their souls anymore. Where the Imam alayhi salam says something, but it cannot change their mind with what they are doing. Nothing could have changed Shimr on the day of Ashura. Nothing could have changed Umar al-Sa'ad. Nothing could have changed Hurmala. Why? Because their hearts were completely sealed. Imam alayhi salam, whatever he would have said to them, they could not have seen it. And finally, I'd like to mention Zuhair ibn Qayn. He had gone out towards the army also to go and advise them of not killing Imam al-Husayn alayhi salam. Shimr, he had come forward whilst Zuhair ibn Qayn was providing his advice, and he started to mock and taunt Zuhair ibn Qayn. Zuhair replies to him, he says, Innama anta bahima. That I am talking about human beings and I do not want to speak to an animal. Dear mu'minin mu'minat, if we want to know what stops us from achieving or listening to moral guidance, then we should know that a soul that is overtaken by animalistic desires can never reach towards moral guidance from the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. A soul that is stubborn, that has the stains of ma'asiyat, God forbid that one cannot listen to moral guidance from the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam anymore, because of the weight of the sins. And if this is the stage of any part of my life, then I need to repent before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Therefore, at the end of this majlis, the concept of Ashura and the understanding behind the movement of Imam Al-Husayn alayhi salam is deen over dunya. If the world that I am living in is compromising my deen, then I have to sacrifice the dunya for the sake of my deen. If the world that I am living in asks me to either prioritize safety or comfort over truth, then I must prioritize truth if I want to be part of the same path of Imam Al-Husayn alayhi salam. And more importantly, death before humiliation. These are amongst the principles that we have spoken about. And the understanding of Husayn alayhi salam and the strategy of the Ahlul Bayt on the battlefield throughout the tariq and history of the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam and Islam. Sallallahu alayka ya Aba Abdullah al-Husayn. Assalamu alayka ya Madloom. Assalamu alayka ya Gharib. Assalamu alayka ya Ahlul Bayt al-Nubuwwa wa Ma'adin al-Risala. Sallallahu alayki ya Zainab al-Kubra. Sallallahu alayka ya Ali ibn al-Husayn Zain al-Abidin. Azadarane Sayyid al-Shuhada alayhi salam. शब अरबाइन के साए में आ चुके हैं. इन अय्याम में अरबाइन की रातें में अहले ईमान के दिलों में, अहले अज़ा के वजूद में एक बेचैनी महसूस होती है. इन अय्याम में अगर इन अय्याम में मुसीबत अहले बैत महसूस है, अगर महसूस कर रहे हैं इस मुसीबत को, तो ये हमारा कमाल नहीं है अज़ीज़ान मोहतरम. हुज्जत खुदा साहिब अज़ा हैं, इमाम ज़मान बानी मजलिस हैं. اگر آج کروڑوں کی تعداد میں کربلا جمع ہیں تو اس لیے جمع ہیں کیونکہ حجت خدا موجود ہے کربلا میں۔ خوشا بحال ان زائرین پہ جو آہستہ آہستہ اس وادی مقدس میں وارد ہو رہے ہیں، اس وادی میں پہنچ رہے ہیں عزاداران امام حسین ایک طولانی سفر کے بعد، جہاں امام زمان کھڑے ہو کے ان کا استقبال کرتے ہیں۔ اگرچہ ہم نہیں دیکھ رہے ہیں لیکن ہمارا یقین ہے کہ امام زمان ان ایام میں، ان راتوں میں بین الحرمین میں موجود ہیں۔ یہیں سے ہم زائرین کے ساتھ شریک ہوتے ہیں۔ یا لیتنا کننا معکم، اے کاش ہم آپ کے ساتھ ہوتے، اے کاش ہم زائرین کربلا میں سے ہوتے۔ مگر عزاداروں، کربلا میں لوگ اپنی حاضری لگاتے ہیں، لیکن جیسے میں نے کہا ہے گزشتہ دنوں میں، گزشتہ راتوں میں، کربلا میں اگر حاضر ہونا ہے تو اپنے دلوں کو متوجہ کر دیں امام حسین کی طرف۔ عزاداروں، کل مختصر مولا سید سجاد علیہ السلام کی کیفیت کو میں نے بتائی تھی اور مدینہ کے مصیبت کو بیان کیا ہے مختصر۔ روایتوں میں ملتا ہے کہ اگر اہل بیت کے ساتھ توسل کرنا ہے تو ائمہ معصومین کی ماؤں کے ساتھ متوسل ہو جائیں۔ میرا سلام ہو مادر عباس جناب ام البنین سلام اللہ علیہ پہ۔ اس لمحے کو یاد کرنا چاہ رہا ہوں جہاں بی بی کو خبر ملی۔ عزادارو، جیسے کاروان مدینے پہنچا تو مولا سید سجاد ایک شخص کو بشیر ابن جزلم سے کہتے ہیں، جاؤ بشیر، اس سے پہلے کہ ہم مدینہ میں وارد ہوں، مدینے میں اعلان کر دو کہ حسین مارے گئے ہیں۔ یہ اعلان کر دو مدینہ میں، اس سے پہلے کہ ہمارا کاروان مدینہ میں پہنچ جائے، جاؤ مدینہ میں یہ اعلان کر دو۔ روایت میں ملتا ہے کہ بشیر قافلے سے آگے بڑھتے ہیں، مدینہ میں پہنچتے ہیں، مسجد النبوی میں وارد ہوتے ہیں اور منبر رسول پہ کھڑے ہوتے ہیں۔ کھڑے ہو کے اعلان کیا، الا یا اہل یثرب قتل الحسین بکربلا۔ جملات پہ اگر غور کریں عزیزان محترم تو اعلان ایسا نہیں ہوا کہ یزید نے حسین کو قتل کر دیا یا شمر نے حسین کو قتل کیا۔ فرمایا قتل الحسین بکربلا، یعنی حسین کے قاتلوں کی تعداد اتنی زیادہ ہے کہ صرف ایک شخص نے نہیں مارا بلکہ 40 قاتلوں نے مارا ہے۔ اگر ایک جیسے نہیں نے مارا، سب نے مختلف طریقوں سے مارا ہے میرے مولا حسین کو۔ جیسے آپ جانتے ہیں مسجد کے کنارے امیر المؤمنین کا گھر تھا، اس گھر میں کون ہیں؟ بی بی ام البنین سلام اللہ علیہ رہتی ہیں۔ جیسے بی بی نے اس اعلان کو سنا نا عزیزان محترم، تو راوی کہتا ہے ایک مرتبہ بی بی نے اپنے سر پہ برقع لیا، گھر سے باہر نکلی، اپنے پوتے سے کہتی ہیں اے فضل مجھے مدینے کے مسجد النبوی کی طرف لے جاؤ۔ عزیزان گرامی، روایت میں ملتا ہے کہ بی بی نے بشیر سے گفتگو کی ہے، اس کو میں آج بیان کرنا چاہ رہا ہوں۔ بی بی نے سوال کیا کہ اے بشیر، تمہارا اعلان تو سنا ہے مگر یہ کون سے حسین ہے؟ یہ کون سے حسین ہے جن کے بارے میں اعلان کیا ہے کہ مارے گئے ہیں؟ بشیر نے ایک مرتبہ کہا نواسہ رسول علی کا لال حسین مارے گئے۔ بس اتنا کہنا تھا عزیزان محترم۔ بی بی نے کہا اے بشیر، میں کیسے مانوں؟ عباس کے ہوتے ہوئے حسین مارے گئے، میں کیسے اس بات کو مانوں؟ بشیر کو معلوم نہیں تھا عزیزان محترم کہ یہ ام البنین مادر عباس ہے۔ تو ایک مرتبہ اس نے کہا عباس کو حسین سے پہلے شہید کر دیا گیا تھا۔ مصیبت کا جملہ پیش کرتا ہوں. بی بی نے کہا میں نہیں مان سکتی علی کا شیر بیٹا عباس مولا حسین کی دفاع میں جنگ نہ کر سکے. بشیر نے کہا اگر خبر نہیں ہے تو آپ کو بتاتا ہوں. جب عباس کے سر پہ گرز لگا جب عباس کے سر پہ گرز لگا عباس گھوڑے پہ سنبھل نہ سکے. بس یہاں پہ ملتا ہے. بی بی نے اپنا تعارف فرمایا. کہا اے بشیر عباس کو خوبی سے تم واقف نہیں ہو. عباس کو تو نہیں جانتے. میں نے اپنے بیٹے کو پالا ہے. میں نے اپنی آنکھوں سے دیکھا ہے. میرا شیر بیٹا عباس ایک ہاتھ سے گرز کو روک کے زمین پہ پھینک دیتا تھا. شاید کچھ لوگ آگے پہنچ چکے ہیں. بشیر بتاؤ کیسے مانوں کہ عباس کے سر پہ گرز لگا اور اس ضرب کو عباس روک نہیں سکا. اس نے جواب میں کہا اے مادر عباس کمال ادب سے کہتا ہوں کہ عباس کو جب گرز لگا تو عباس کے بازو نہیں تھے. عباس کے بازو نہیں تھے. بس عزادارو جب بی بی ام البنین نے یہ سنا نا تو پھر بی بی زمین پہ بیٹھ جاتی ہے. ایک مرتبہ بی بی نے نوحہ پڑھنا شروع کیا. اپنے بیٹے کا نام لینا شروع کیا. واہ عباس واہ عباس ہائے میرے عباس ہائے عباس. بشیر نے کہا کہ ام البنین کو اس حالت میں دیکھ کے بشیر کہتا ہے میرا دل جلنے لگا ہے. تو میں نے بی بی سے پوچھا اسی حالت میں کہ آپ کی کیا خدمت کر سکتا ہوں. اے ام البنین آپ کی گریہ پہ قربان ہو جاؤں. بی بی نے جواب میں کہا اے بشیر مجھے بس صرف اتنا بتاؤ جب کوئی شاہ سوار گھوڑے سے گرتا ہے جب کوئی شاہ سوار گھوڑے سے گرتا ہے تو وہ ہاتھوں کا سہارا لیتا ہے. اگر میرے عباس کے بازو نہیں تھے تو میرا شیر بیٹا زمین پہ کیسے گرا. بس عزاداروں روایت میں ملتا ہے کہ بی بی جنت البقیع میں آتی ہیں. 4 بیٹوں کی قبریں زمین پہ نقش بنایا. ایک ایک پہ نام لکھا. یہ عباس کی قبر ہے, یہ عبداللہ کی قبر ہے, یہ جعفر کی قبر ہے. پھر بی بی نے ان قبور کے سامنے مخاطب ہو کر کہتی ہیں اے میرے شیرو آج میں تم پہ گریہ کرنے کے لیے نہیں آئی, آج میں اپنے مولا حسین کے لیے آئی ہوں. عزیزان محترم یہ جو ہم عزاداری کرتے ہیں, یہ جو رسم ہے, یہ جو کبھی ہم مرثیہ پڑھتے ہیں کبھی نوحہ پڑھتے ہیں, بی بی ام البنین نے آغاز کیا تھا. روایتوں میں ملتا ہے کہ مروان نے ایک دن اپنے مشاور سے پوچھتا ہے کہ یہ جو ہر دن جنت البقیع میں لوگ جمع ہو رہے ہیں کیوں جمع ہو رہے ہیں, یہ کون لوگ ہیں. اس کے مشاور نے کہا کہ یہ ام البنین مادر عباس ہیں جو اپنے عباس کے لیے مرثیہ پڑھتی ہیں, نوحہ پڑھتی ہیں. لوگ جمع ہوتے ہیں یہاں پہ. میں بی بی کے مشہور جو اشعار ہیں جو بی بی نے اپنے بیٹے عباس سے مخاطب ہو کر کہا میں اس کو پیش کرنا چاہ رہا ہوں. آخری جملات پیش کرتا ہوں, آپ سنیں اس کو. بی بی فرماتی ہیں لا تدعونی ویک ام البنین, مجھے اس کے بعد ام البنین کے نام سے نہیں پکارو. تذکرینی بالیوث العرین, مجھے اپنے شیر جیسے بیٹے یاد آتے ہیں. کانت بنون علی ادعا بہم, میرے پاس بیٹے تھے ایک زمانے میں کہ مجھے ام البنین کہا جاتا تھا. والیوم اصبحت ولا من بنین, لیکن میرا آج کوئی بیٹا نہیں ہے, سب حسین کی راہ میں شہید ہو گئے ہیں. پھر بی بی ام البنین نے ایک مرتبہ عباس کی طرف اشارہ کیا. بی بی ام البنین اپنے بیٹے علمدار کربلا سے مخاطب ہو کر کہتی ہے انبئت ان ابنی اصیب برأسہ مقطوع ید, میں نے سنا ہے کہ تیرے بازوؤں کو جدا کر دیے گئے تھے. ویلی علی شبلی، اے میرے عباس، اما برأسہ ضرب العمد، تمہارے بازو جب جدا ہوئے یہی سبب بنی کہ تمہارے سر پہ گرز لگا. لو کان سیفک فی ید، اگر تمہارے ہاتھوں میں تلوار ہوتی، لما دنا منک احدا، کسی کے پاس جرأت نہیں تھی کہ میرے بیٹے کو کوئی اس طریقے سے ضرب لگائے. انا للہ و انا الیہ راجعون. ماتم حسین.
بھیا میں آ گئی ہوں نانا کا دی بچا کے، بھیا میں آ گئی ہوں نانا کا دی بچا کے، بھیا میں آ گئی ہوں نانا کا دی بچا کے. جاؤں گی اب مدینہ، جاؤں گی اب مدینہ، چیلم تیرا منا کے، بھیا میں آ گئی ہوں نانا کا دی بچا کے، بھیا میں آ گئی ہوں نانا کا دی بچا کے. معلوم ہے یہ تم کو زینب اجڑ چکی ہے، لیکن تیری شہادت گھر گھر پہنچ گئی ہے. شاباش دو بہن کو، شاباش دو بہن کو، بھیا گلے لگا کے، بھیا میں آ گئی ہوں نانا کا دی بچا کے، بھیا میں آ گئی ہوں نانا کا دی بچا کے. بھیا تمہاری زینب اب وہ نہیں رہی ہے، پہچان لوگے مجھ کو، حالت بدل گئی ہے. چلتی ہے یہ ضعیفہ، چلتی ہے یہ ضعیفہ، بھائی کمر جھکا کے، بھیا میں آ گئی ہوں نانا کا دی بچا کے، بھیا میں آ گئی ہوں نانا کا دی بچا کے. سجاد اور باقر دیں گے گواہی میری، کھائے ہیں تازیانے بنتے علی نے پھر بھی، لے آئی شامیوں سے، لے آئی شامیوں سے، وارث تیرے بچا کے، بھیا میں آ گئی ہوں نانا کا دی بچا کے، بھیا میں آ گئی ہوں نانا کا دی بچا کے. کیسے بتاؤں بھیا بازار میں جو گزری، کہتے تھے سب کے مارو یہ ہے علی کی بیٹی، بابا کے بھی میں بدلے، بابا کے بھی میں بدلے، سب آئی ہوں چکا کے، بھیا میں آ گئی ہوں نانا کا دی بچا کے، بھیا میں آ گئی ہوں نانا کا دی بچا کے. رحمت نے تجھ پہ بھائی رونے کہاں دیا ہے،
جی بھر کے میں نے تیرا ماتم کہاں کیا ہے،
روئے گی آج زینب، روئے گی آج زینب فرش عذاب بچھا کے،
بھیا میں آ گئی ہوں
نانا کا دی بچا کے، بھیا
میں آ گئی ہوں نانا کا دی بچا کے،
گھر جا کے کیا کروں گی پہلو میں ہی سلا لو،
اکبر سے کہہ کے مجھ کو تربت کی جا دلا دو،
مالک ہو تم تو بھائی،
مالک ہو تم تو بھائی جاگیر کربلا کے، بھیا میں آ گئی ہوں نانا کا دی بچا کے، بھیا میں آ گئی ہوں نانا کا دی بچا کے،
یہ کہے کہ اے تکلم اٹھتی علی کی بیٹی،
عباس کی لحد پر پہنچا دے مجھ کو کوئی،
دکھلا دو با وفا کو،
دکھلا دو با وفا کو رسی کے نیل جا کے، بھیا میں آ گئی ہوں نانا کا دی بچا کے، بھیا میں آ گئی ہوں نانا کا دی بچا کے،
جاؤں گی اب مدینہ،
جاؤں گی اب مدینہ چہلم تیرا منا کے، بھیا میں آ گئی ہوں نانا کا دی بچا کے، بھیا میں آ گئی ہوں نانا کا دی بچا کے۔
الفاتحہ۔
بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم۔ આવતીકાલે રાતના 7:50 અત્રે હુસૈની ઝહરામાં ઇમામ હુસૈન અલૈહિસ્સલામ અને શહદાએ કરબલાની 40ની મજલિસ અને ત્યારબાદ નિયાઝના જમનમાં સર્વે બાયો તથા ભાઈઓ પધારજો. અહસંત.
السلام عليك يا رسول الله، السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين، السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدة النساء العالمين، السلام عليك يا حسن المجتبى، السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا غريب الغرباء سلطان أبا الحسن علي بن موسى الرضا، كن شفيعنا وشفيع والدينا في يوم الجزاء ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا مولانا يا صاحب العصر والزمان، سيدي الأمان 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 من فتنة الزمان. السلام عليك يا شريك القرآن، السلام عليك يا كعبة الإيمان، السلام عليك يا إمامنا وإمام الإنس والجان، أجل الله تعالى فرجك وسهل الله تعالى مخرجك وظهورك ورحمة الله وبركاته.
اللهم صل على